Hi everyone, my name is Beatrice Lindvall and I'm the co-founder of Common Measure, and I also work in media at JD here in Amsterdam. And I was invited together with a very esteemed panel today to talk about respecting the gamer. And we're going to focus a lot today on the fact that, unlike other channels, gaming really wasn't grown out of advertising dollars, nor does it kind of arguably need it. So it means that brands really need to adapt different set of rules when almost invading the gamers environment. So we want to talk today a little bit about why you should never distract gamers and why you shouldn't introduce your brand objectives when it's not really related to the game itself. I'm here with four lovely participants on the panel, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Maybe first, Kay, take it away.
Sure. So first up, thank you, Bea, for chairing this, and thank you to the MediaTel team for having their panel today. So I'm Kay. I'm the Global Innovation and Partnerships Manager at Mindshare Worldwide. And I work with our teams and clients globally to help them understand and decode the latest marketing technologies and innovations and trends. So that can be anything from voice technology to visual search and, of course, gaming. And for gaming in particular, I've helped to build the Mindshare Central Gaming offering, which is why I'm here to talk to you today.
Amazing. Livia?
Yes, hi, thank you everyone. So I'm Livia, based in Paris, and I work at Danone for 3 years now as a global manager for media and precision marketing. So the main topic that we are focusing on now is how we are challenged to meet this new audience regarding gaming and how we can revamp our brands in it.
Cool. Vanessa?
Cool. So I'm Vivi. I'm the marketing director at Bidstack. Bidstack are an in-game advertising platform specialising in native in-game advertising, and I've been with the company just over a year as well.
Wonderful. Ashwin?
Cool. Thanks for having us again, Bear. I'm Ashwin Desai. I manage the gaming and experiential businesses at Formula One. On the gaming side of that remit, the focus for us is on working with gaming developers around the world to build F1 games and gaming experiences, both to target, existing F1 fans and racing gamers, and also hopefully to bring new fans into the sport.
Amazing, cool. Well, definitely going to drill into more how to engage the fans with these new kind of platforms and new developments of brands. But to kick it off, I guess a question to everyone. This is definitely the first event that I've participated in that's specifically been focused on gamers and gaming, and particularly how brands interact with that. What does everyone feel has kind of changed in the past few years that's really driven this brand and gaming event? Maybe Kay.
Yeah, so I think the last couple of years is definitely something to think about, but I also think that at the moment we can just look back to the last couple of months even. Obviously, consumers' online behaviour has changed dramatically. They're not going out as much, they're online a lot more. So we're seeing new technology and platforms coming through. To illustrate this, in March 2020, the sales of games, hardware and accessories grew 35% in the US from the year before. Twitch have seen record highs in terms of activity, and I alone have spent a fair amount of time playing Spyro. So I think advertisers and brands are now kind of aware that they need to stay relevant in this new normal, and they need to diversify their media plans to think about these new environments and perhaps virtual ones so that they can reach their new audiences.
Okay, cool. Vanessa, you're obviously representing a platform. First time at the gaming event for this particular type. What have you seen changed?
So in terms of change, I guess there's been a need for the advertising community to kind of branch out from where they've traditionally spent their ad money. So efficiencies, effectiveness of the more traditional channels and the digital channels as well, we've seen a fall. So in kind of a bid to help the advertising industry to find newer emerging channels, gaming is definitely one where it can help the advertising industry kind of engage an audience that was previously really difficult to reach, and that's what we're here to do.
Okay, cool. Ashwin, from your perspective, what's really changed?
I mean, I think it's a really interesting question because, of course, we've had advertising in mobile games, for instance, for a really long time. I think what's happened the last couple of years is the emergence of these gaming experiences that are live, scalable, internet connected, in many cases multiplayer experiences. I'm thinking things like Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox, that present whole new opportunities for brands. We saw just the other week with the Travis Scott concert. It was a really cool, on the face of it, a really cool concert in Fortnite. At the same time, it was a great, brand placement opportunity for Nike. And you can't watch that and not have seen the Nike sneakers, the placement of the Nike sneakers across that broadcast. So I think a part of this is also technological. It's about the emergence of these new games, the emergence of advertising solutions that can seamlessly fit into them, and that can present really, really, I think, compelling brand experiences, both from from a brand perspective, but also from a player perspective too.
Okay, that's cool. It's amazing. I was going to turn the gaze back actually to Kay for first question, because you obviously work from an agency point of view. You're just saying kind of about Mindshare's new propositions and kind of helping brands get into this space. So from your point of view, any brands top of mind that are working really well in this space, and what are they doing really well?
Yeah, so if we're talking about in-game advertising specifically, I think one thing that's really important is to make sure you get it right by making sure that advertising fits into the space. So it's got to have the right feel and look for the game. So one brand that springs to mind from just a couple of weeks ago that did a really good campaign, it's a homeware company called Livia's. And they worked with the game called Animal Crossing, which if you haven't heard of it at the moment, it's really popular. It's essentially it's described as a casual life simulator. And one of the players' many goals in the game is to expand their home and the items in it. So basically they collect and buy furniture and items from these virtual shops, and then they put these into their virtual home. But that's one of the challenges. But the second challenge is to make sure it actually looks really nice inside that house as well. And so this is where Livia stepped in. They gave players the chance to be paid up to €40 an hour to help design these virtual homes. And so Livia's is kind of a facilitator. They're hiring consultants that will be able to provide feedback on what somebody's house looks like in this game. So I think that's a fantastic example of a brand doing this really well, because they fit into the game environment. They're giving something really useful to people in the game as well. Now, on the flip side, there are cases of brands that haven't done their homework and haven't found the right fit. And a good example of this comes from November last year. It's with the game Death Stranding, and it was released back then. And it features a dystopian, apocalyptic world. And it received quite a lot of negative reviews from the gamers for having really unrealistic product placement. So they had Monster energy drinks everywhere in the game. They had advertising banners for a motorcycle reality show, which was in the shower of all places in an apocalyptic world. So users said that they found it really off-putting and unnecessary. And gamers really will call out brands for something they don't feel is authentic. So I think the best thing and the best brands working in the space at the moment are the ones that are fitting into the game environment seamlessly and adding value.
Okay, that's very, very good advice. If Livia, you work across a number of brands at Danone, and you have broad experience both from online and offline, even though I hate that differentiator because it's media these days, but I'll still use it. What do you think is kind of the biggest differentiator when you look at the brands that you worked on coming into the gaming space versus other areas, for instance? I mean, you mentioned, for instance, starting with audiences, but can you tell us a bit more about what you think about?
So totally what I would see is that we have like 4 main differentiators that we can raise up. The first one is how we can reach a new audience, which is very different from the other channels that we have. Some people who are younger and fresh audiences. The second one is more about how we can adapt our brand to this new channel, because it's not only about bringing our positioning and manifesto to the platform, it's also understanding this ecosystem, enter in this world, and we need to adapt our positioning to fit with this totally new audience, and adapt our product, adapt our messages, adapt our format, everything. The third one is, I think the best one for us is that there are many opportunities of activation when it comes to gaming. It's not only about putting a post or just putting a video on a story. It's about having premium media placement, but it's also about live stream. It's also about sponsorship of streamers. It's about participating on esports event. And this one is also a nice bridge between the digital life and the real life. So that's a great one for us. And the first one is quite important also, is about the healthiness of the way we live, because usually when it comes to gaming, we think that people are eating kind of junk food. So they are eating salty snack and they drink Coke all night. But with our brands, like as Danone is a healthy company and we provide healthy products, we want also to show that gamers can be healthy and they can eat healthy food even if they are playing all night. So that's a big challenge that we have.
True and true. Gamers can be healthy. I couldn't agree more with you. If we think about then, you're talking about the different kind of audiences and maybe Vanessa coming from the platform side, when you hear Livia's perspective on kind of how they think about what's needed for brands to engage in the platform, how do you kind of support that specific engagement plan and what can you see from really sitting on all of this information and data around gamers?
So in terms of brand engagement, what we've identified is that in-game ads, specifically native in-game ads, only really work in certain genres. So football games or stadium-based games, racing titles, open world titles, anywhere where it kind of, or any game that simulates real life situations, those types of advertising space that already exists within the game is going to naturally fit really, really well. Now, how we advise brands is more sort of erring on kind of letting them know that whatever creative that they put in has to sit authentically within the environment. Now, like, for example, if a brand wanted to be featured in a Final Fantasy game, like a completely otherworldly sci-fi, if not kind of a Wild West type of game, and you see a pristine PepsiCo kind of banner ad in there, it's going to jar, like how it did in Death Stranding. So that's where our kind of expertise come in, where we try and not negotiate, but kind of guide them in the direction of this will actually enhance your relationship with your consumer, i.e. the gamer. This will actually help you create an even more brand positive relationship between you and the gamer.
Okay. That's good advice. Well, Ashwin, you're coming from my prejudice, maybe a more traditional sports platform, and now you're kind of conquering the esports. This must have dramatically changed your business and kind of your proposition and how Formula One is thinking around gamers.
Yeah, massively. I mean, I think digital transformation has been top of the agenda for us since Liberty came and acquired the business in 2017. I think even then you had a sport that has something like, I think, close to 2 billion cumulative viewers every year. And in 2017, I believe we had around 5 million social followers. Since then, I think we've been the fastest growing sport on social for 2 or 3 years straight. We've relaunched and revamped our digital and social products and launched a raft of new digital products. And they're kind of targeting not just the gamer demographic, but a broader digital savvy, younger demo, I'd say. In terms of gaming in particular, I'd say, we are looking to expand our gaming program, taking a very demographic focused approach. So previously we had just the racing simulation games that are produced by Codemasters, really high fidelity, top quality games that appeal primarily to racing gamers. We're now looking at launching a range of more casual products, knowing that casual audience just has a very different demographic makeup. It can often be much more balanced, male to female, and even a bit older too. It can straddle age demos. So that's interesting for us. We've obviously invested really heavily in our esports series that's seen so much success over the last couple of months as we've all been in lockdown. And we're also looking at ways in which I think taking the core F1 proposition, the broadcast experience, ways in which we can innovate around that. So we worked last year with Twitch to create this really interesting social interactive gaming plus viewing experience where you could watch the Mexican Grand Prix and participate in a predictor game overlaid on top of it, which went down really, really well across the Twitch's audience in the markets we trialed it in, which is, I think, another exciting development for us in terms of experimenting with our proposition. So I'd say across gaming and also broadcast, I think we're trying to appeal to right across the spectrum, from your hardcore gamers to more casual fans and just viewers that want some kind of light touch interactivity on top of our standard broadcast proposition.
Okay, cool. Really interesting. Well, Vanessa, you're obviously kind of part of Bidstack, and there are a few similar platform propositions where you have this immersive advertising on gaming platforms. And this obviously is a slightly different consumer engagement and performance versus maybe some more traditional approaches. And Ashwin was just talking about different brands, different sporting experiences. What's your view kind of how to tackle different types of environments? Can you just elaborate a bit on that?
Sure. I think the key here to ensure that the gamers are still going to be, really engaged within that environment is authenticity. A really well thought out engagement content strategy for that specific game is going to be really, really important. I think what we've got to remember is that gamers specifically carved out time within their day to actually game, to spend time within that environment, and use gaming as a vessel of escapism. So any content that we put into the game, it has to be really well thought out. It has to look really authentic to that environment. Otherwise, it completely breaks it and muddies the water for the gamer, and they wouldn't want to come back again. And for us, that is why it's so important that we only ever utilize the ad spaces that already exist within the game. We don't build objects or structures or anything like that into the environment, because as soon as the gamer sees it, it's going to be game over for us. So our relationships with our game publishers like Codemasters are really important, because that's where the inventory comes through, and as I said, they've spent so much time, so much money as well, building all of these wonderful, beautiful environments for essentially the gamer to enjoy as well. Us as advertisers can't then just, be a bull in a china shop and be like, this is where I want to see everything. So yeah, the authenticity is very, very important.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, I guess so we're talking about environments. There are different environments. I mean, the circuit games, stage games, open world games. I mean, this is a very, very diverse space that we're talking about. And kind of the authenticity of following on what Vanessa's saying around authentic environments kind of blending in. What's your perspective in Formula One around this? How are you approaching it? Is it different for different brands and games?
Yeah, no, I'd second everything that Vanessa said, really. I mean, authenticity is really key. And I guess, we licensors, we're probably the boring ones in that, especially sports brands, we have our roster of real world commercial partners who pay significant amounts for association with the brand. So when we do license our IP out, to games developers, we do take every care to ensure that we protect that association. That said, I think some sports licensors are doing some interesting things. They're kind of testing around the edges. I mean, NBA 2K, for instance, has done a really interesting job of protecting, Nike status within their roster of partners, while also incorporating other apparel brands in a way that seems quite smart. I think all licensors will take a slightly different approach. Will probably be on the more cautious side compared to your original branded games, I'd imagine.
Okay, cool. Well, okay. This is obviously a complex space. We're talking now programmatic platforms where brands can get involved in gaming. There's obviously other routes to go into this space. How do you, as an agency partner, really start consulting brands on how do you master this space? Like how do I get great consumer engagement? Yeah. Any tips?
Good question. So at Mindshare Worldwide, we have a gaming offering, and we use this to help our brands and our clients to understand what's going to work for them. So first of all, we give them a bit of an education on the gaming landscape, get them up to speed on what they can do in that space. And then we move on to workshops to help them decipher what's right for them and come out with the best strategy. Just building on what these guys have just said, it's so important to pick the right game and the right environment. So if we're looking at programmatic platforms, for example, we definitely recommend these for the right brand and the right situation. WPP have invested in Anzi.io, which is another programmatic in-ad game company, which I think you're going to hear from today as well. So this is great because obviously you don't disrupt the user experience, you're combating ad blockers, it's a brand safe environment. So we definitely recommend this channel. But like Livia was saying earlier, it's really important to think about other channels as well. There's so much opportunity in and around the games. You've got influencers, you've got esports sponsorships, live events when they come back again, and all sorts of things, live platforms and Twitch, for example. So thinking about where your audience is going to be, and then we consult our brands on this and help them to decipher where's best to put their advertising and what's going to give the best impact to the audience.
So it sounds that there are various routes to kind of get into this space. Livia, I want to turn back a little bit to the brand perspective, and you know, I would say you representing some major brands that have been quite early in this space from an FMCG point of view, I think. What's kind of the route of entry? How have you started planning this engagement? And since you've been early in the market, I think as well, in many cases, what's kind of the pitfalls? Are there something that other brands can maybe learn from it?
Yeah, so we started 1 year ago on a brand which is Actimel. So Actimel is a drinkable yogurt, sometimes for kids, sometimes for adults. But what it says is that it will improve your immune system. That's the key message of this brand. And what we did is that we started to work with Twitch and League of Legends to put some media premium video on the platforms, to put the product also with streamers. So we started to do some partnership with streamers. And the goal was to say, thanks to Actimel, you will be energized for your play, for your game. And that fits pretty well. And we also worked with a platform which is Newzoo. So what they are doing is that they are bringing audiences about the gaming, and we are able to know a bit better who we are addressing and how to address them. So that's quite important, because for now, when it comes to your question about the pitfalls, one of the biggest challenges that we have is about the data and the audience, because it's very hard today to understand how people are consuming food, for example, and using games. So for now, what we have as information is more like a socio-demo information, what kind of games people are playing on, but we don't really know what do they buy and how they purchase. And that's the key information for us to drive them to buy and to understand the benefits of the product. So that's one of the big pitfalls that we can have, is that when we invest our money in media and gaming, we can be a bit shy because we are not sure the people we are targeting. And maybe the other one also would be about the games that we are targeting. This is all about the brand safety. The thing around that is that, well, as in all the media actually, but in gaming, it's very present. The violence, drugs, sexual, all those kind of things that are really not referring to our category. So we need to be very careful in the blacklist, the whitelist that we are putting to serve our brand in those games. Yes.
True. Well, that's a very fair point when kind of talking about brand safety and flip the coin a little bit on the environments, because we're talking a lot about protecting the gamers' environment. But turning gaze back to Kay, for instance, what's your take on the brand safety issues? Are there huge issues there? Is there something that brands need to really be conscious of?
Yeah, just to build on Livia's point, of course, it's going to depend on each brand. Some brands might not be bothered about being in a first-person shooter, but a lot of brands probably will be. I think a really good example for this comes from car games. So, for example, say you're a car brand and your main message is that your car is really safe and a family car. You might not want to have your car smashed up in a game or have a car crash below a billboard with your brand on it. But if you flip that round, if you're a big fast car brand, say let's take Ferrari for example, and people don't tend to want to smash those cars up in real life. So getting the opportunity to smash that car in a game is actually really fun, and the consumers really, or the gamers really value that. So it actually comes down to, again, the brand, what they feel the message is, what the environment is, and what they think safe, and what their consumers will really get out of it.
Okay, cool. I want to dig a little bit more into Ashwin, because you're gaming and experiential responsible. So I want to definitely learn more about that. Could maybe, from your perspective, turning back to the environment of the gamers and maybe the experience that they're looking for, what's particular for brands in this space? What do they need to think about when it comes to the environment?
I think just to be conscious of the particular games that they're looking to partner with and integrate within. I think as Vanessa said, gamers are taking time out of their lives to play a game, and that's what they want to do, and they want the player experience to be as rich as possible. You don't really want to be interrupted by brand messages every 5 seconds. I think on mobile there'll always be interstitial in-app opportunities, rewarded ads. We've seen there are various other kinds of inventory. I think they'll kind of continue to be viable. On console, tolerance levels are going to vary by game and probably by game director. I think it's much more like film and TV product placement than it is many other kinds of media, that you're at the mercy of the creative, I think, to an extent. And for many games, given the monetization model, inventory is probably going to be peripheral. Your kind of Mario's, Pokemon's, Crash's, Grand Theft Autos are going to remain walled gardens. Like the biggest games in the world will always remain walled gardens. But there'll be some titles that can find a way to integrate brands while not diminishing and potentially even enhancing the experience. Your Rocket Leagues, maybe your Fortnites. You could get a mobile phone into a first-person shooter if you're open to that from a brand perspective. There are interesting things to be done, but it's going to be very, very game specific, I think.
Okay, very, very good. So just as brands are different, games are definitely different. So it has to be case by case basis. I think we're coming to the end actually of our panel. It's been really, really good chat. But before we leave everyone, maybe what's the one sentence you think that everyone listening in should take with them after this session? It's been a very fascinating one. One word of advice, Livia.
I would take the word that Vanessa used about authenticity, that she said many times, and it's really, really true for us in terms of how we become like tech savvy, and also the content that we create. We need to fit really with this.
Cool. Kay, one word of advice?
I would just go back to what I said at the beginning. Obviously, the last 2 years has changed a lot, but the last 2 months, a lot has changed too. So just now's the time to jump in and get involved.
Cool. Vanessa?
I can't give you a word, but I can give you a phrase. Well thought out content. I think that's going to be key. I think like with Wendy's and Fortnite last year with the burger heads and pizza, that was so well done. It was incredible. So, and it was also really well received by the gaming community and won a Cannes Lion Award as well. So well thought out content.
Cool. Ashwin?
I can't give you a word. I'm jealous Livia took authenticity because that's a good one. I'd say think about enhancing gameplay. Think about that rather than just sticking around in.
Okay, amazing. Well, hopefully all brands listening in now realise there is an opportunity to be authentic and find your place, just like Burger King did last year, Vanessa. I think that was a good example to close out our conversation. So just a huge thank you to everyone on the panel. It's been amazing. Thank you for MediaTel for setting up this virtual event. Hopefully all 5 of us will reconvene next year live in person. And a big thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.